it's just my opinion. It's just me, right? I'm always baffled, I'm being honest, by real people who are in relationships, like courting stage, dating stage, and they having like issues and stuff, or like it's toxic. And I'm like, my thinking is always, isn't this supposed to be like the best time, like the early stages? Isn't it supposed to be the time with the most excitement and love and, um, and so I'm always amazed that, even before couples get married, their relationships seem to be toxic and always a back and forth or whatever. I'll tell you all straight, and my advice to anybody who has an ongoing relationship like that, like you're courting someone and that's how your relationship is all the time, I would never encourage a couple like that to get married. Because newsflash, ladies, if that's how your courtship was, if that's how your dating relationship with the person was, that's not how your marriage is going to be. It's going to be worse, because that's supposed to be the stage where everything fresh and exciting and stuff, but I know, of course, in any relationship, even relationships outside of like romantic relationships, issues do come up, and so obviously this is going to help as well, right? But the difference between somebody who's married and who's dating, if you're dating someone, you're seeing someone, you're courting someone, and you have these continual problems, issues coming up over and over and over, it could be a nice little sign for you that, hey, I might be making a mistake here, and let me end this relationship, right? But, in some cases, it could be just really little things that could be worked out. So we're going to get into it tonight, right? So it's 5 things, but I think it ended up like 6 or 7, because it was kind of hard to squish 5 things in. Let me start by saying, ladies, this is not like a magic list that if any couple that's having problems implements, their problem's going to go away. Because I'm sure some of you have been in a situation before, might be in right now, in a relationship or marriage even, where you actually don't even want to improve it. You have actually reached the stage of numbness. There comes a time when you could just be numb, like you're literally flatline, like you're in the marriage, but like you're dead. You're not a participant in the marriage, right? And you actually will not even willing to put effort into making it better or improving it. And your plan might be just to continually go through the motions. And if that's your plan, if that's your thinking, this can't help you, because you would not be willing to try, right? And so obviously this is going to be for someone, a couple, but for you ladies that are on, who is actually invested and willing to move forward and work on their relationship or their marriage, willing to put in the work, willing to make the sacrifice, willing to still hold on to the love that you might have for your spouse and say, I want to save my marriage. There's some people who reach that stage where they're still married, yes, but they have no interest in saving anything or fixing anything, right? So that's a bad place to be. The Bible actually refers to that of like, when the hardness of your heart. And if your heart gets so hard in a relationship that nothing could penetrate it, there actually is very difficult to come back from that. Unless, of course, you break up that hardness in your heart and make an effort to love again, right? So it's not a magic fix. It's something that you have to put in work for, right? Let me just say this really quickly before I get into the list, ladies, right? Because this is something that people always ask me. When to leave? When should I even be working on this relationship? Are all marriages worth saving? What am I really, should I really hold on to this? This has caused me so much pain. It's caused me, right? And people, the question is, do I hold on to this thing forever? For how long? How long am I to take this pain? How long am I to take this abuse or whatever it is, right? And so this might be a strange statement for you all to hear coming from a pastor, because, I know that the church has this taboo thinking about divorce, and I'm certainly not one that is an advocate for divorce. It's certainly never my first recommendation to a couple, even though things hitting rock bottom. But there are some marriages that are not worth saving. I don't know how that coming across to you all, how that's sounding, if it's sounding too harsh, if it's sounding like a speaking heresy, but there are some that are not worth saving. And so I didn't want to just leave that like as is. So I put together a really small list of situations and scenarios where it's not necessarily that I would not advise that you try to save or try to salvage anything. There are situations where you have to just call it quits, right? And so for me, no, and first, and next thing is, I would never, because there's such a thing as separation, you could go your separate ways without getting divorced. Divorce is expensive, it is messy, it is long, right? And so I would think that a couple would want to try separation before live on your own, you know, do your own thinking, work on yourself separately from each other, totally separate from each other, before going to that, the finality of divorce, right? And so the number one, I'm just, this is a short list. This is just 5 things that in my opinion, you could, it's safe to say I'm going to call this quits, right? Where you don't have to suffer through it, right? And one is infidelity. If your partner is continually unfaithful to you, always having multiple partners, or not, well, not multiple, but okay, you catch him with one, 2 years pass, you catch him with the next one, 3 years pass, you have a child down the road, and next year pass, you know what I mean? So that kind of thing, where he is just not able to be faithful to you. He's not, you cannot trust him in that area. He always has affairs. Worse yet, if he had a long-term affair, no, I don't know. I mean, you all tell me how you all might deal with that, right? I think I've said it several times on this call already that I think I don't know, because you don't know these things until you're actually in this situation, right? I think if my husband, let's say in a moment of weakness, does end up, let's say, being unfaithful to me with another woman, in a moment of weakness, not an affair, right? And comes and tells me, right? And he comes saying, oh God, I don't know what happened, girl, things, all right? I end up this girl, whatever, who's in the room, and she threw off, she top, and that was it, and right, whatever, all right? And you come and you tell me after it happened. In a scenario like that, I would consider, I'll need a lot of help though from God and from maybe therapy, but I will consider forgiveness and saying, well, forgiveness in all cases is necessary, but I will consider moving forward and, well, forgiving you, yes, for what you did, and perhaps trying to move on and work on the marriage, you know, if certain things, you know, we establish certain things up front, right? But not if you were in a long-term affair. If after 5 years, I find out that you had another woman in a whole other house, right? That you used to go and visit. When you tell me you go in, to play FIFA with the boys, you down by Jane, right? All these years, and I find out you've been having a long-term, I can't. And I don't even want to try, I'm being honest, to try to forgive you and move on, right? For me, that's divorce, right? And that is, ladies, even as believers, that is something that God actually says it's okay to get divorced. That is one of the reasons why God says it's okay to get divorced. You do not have to suffer through a marriage where your partner, your spouse, is being continually unfaithful to you. You don't, ladies. Don't let anybody, even your pastor or whoever, tell you you had to suffer through it, and pray, he will come through one day, right? Yeah, especially if it's something that's happened on more than one occasion, right? That's not, I can tell you all, ladies, that's not God's plan for you, to be in that type of relationship, right? Number 2, physical abuse, right? I don't want to stay too long on this. If he hit you once, he hit you twice, once is too much. And again, I'm not saying divorce, but if your husband hits you, he's physical, push you up against a door and you hurt yourself, you bust your head, and he do it once, twice, get yourself out of that's a dangerous situation. You're not a punching bag. You're not some, you know, I mean, you're not even supposed to be doing your child that, but get yourself out of that situation. He might need some help, and it might have hope for him to get help, but move, separate yourself from that, right? Don't stay and take licks and try and work on it. Okay, ladies, don't do that. Next one, number 3, if he is addicted to some sort of drug, substance abuse, if he taking cocaine in your house, or let's say an alcoholic, and alcoholics sometimes, depending on their temperament, they tend to get violent too. So if the abuse comes when he's drunk, that scenario you want to get yourself out of as well. Many women lost their lives with their husband coming home in a drunken stupor and angry and beating them and don't know what, right? Don't let that be you. So, or if you're taking cocaine and he getting high, thieving thing from the neighbor to sustain his addiction, that kind of thing, you don't have to stay in that scenario, right? Number 4, any behavior or lifestyle that is putting yourself or your children in immediate danger. So you marry a bad man. It was nice in the earlys. It seemed like fun. Hey, I have a bad man boyfriend, boy. You have a gun. You don't use it though, but you have a gun. You show it to me. You real cool boy. You know, I like his vibes and thing, whatever, right? But then the lifestyle now becomes a threat to you because you have people looking for him because of his lifestyle. Let's say he might be a bandit, you go in it, right? So if his lifestyle is putting you and your children in danger, if he's involved in something illegal, and police could come and bust down your door and take, you know, if police come, they have cocaine in your house, right? I know a family this happened to, more than one. Suspected have cocaine in your house and they bust down the door and they come in, they search on you there and stuff. Everybody go on police station until they determine who had nothing to do with that, right? Everybody's a suspect in the house, right? So, yeah, get yourself out of that situation, ladies. You don't want to be with somebody like that. The last thing now, this is something, you know, this is from the Bible. And something that I tell a lot of Christians, because I've seen ladies over the years where, especially in the case of Christians, believers, because divorce is such a taboo thing and something that is frowned on, and you know, like I always say, it's almost like the unpardonable sin, right? I've seen people suffer through really horrific situations and in their marriage as a Christian. I spoke to a young lady years ago who stayed with someone, her husband, not someone, stayed with her husband for 10 years after finding out that he was a gay and that he had a gay lover. And in the 10 years that she stayed with him, he had relations with the person and she knew that. And other partners as well, gay partners I'm talking about, right? And the reason why she told me she stayed so long is because she said God did not give her the release to go, right? I am here to tell you, ladies, that from the time you find out that your husband is in a homosexual relationship, I'm not saying divorce, right? Let's say he does want help. Let's say he cry and he bawl and he say, yeah, yes, I've always been gay or bisexual. I need help, girl. I thought marriage would help me, but marriage didn't help me. You know, and he cried out for help and you all try to help. Again, I'm saying work with him if it's help he wants. But her scenario was different. This man continued having the affair with the man and even had other partners in the years that they stayed together. And her reason for staying was that God did not give her the release. So what kind of father is that? If you say that God is your father and he loves you, what father? You tell me, ladies, which one of you will tell your daughter or your son to stay in a situation like that? You know, and at one point in the relationship, she even said that he asked her to be apart. Now, this is, guys, I'm talking about two Christians, huh? I'm talking about two Christians. I'm not talking about people in the world. I'm talking about people who claim to be believers and active in a church, right? And she said God did not give her the release, so she stayed basically and suffered through that for 10 years, right? If she were to come to me in the first year, realizing that he was still with this man, even though he was married to her, he was not willing to let go the man, I would have told her, God has given you the release. I could say that. I could speak on God's behalf and say, God has given you the release. Because God's plan was not for her to be in a relationship with a homosexual man who refuses to change and is living a lifestyle that God actually considers an abomination and is refusing to change, right? And so many Christians get themselves in these types of situations. And so I want to read the scripture for you all. It's in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Let me read it, right? It says, if any brother has a wife who does not believe and she's willing to live with him, let him not divorce her. And if a woman who has a husband if a woman who has a husband who does not believe, if he is willing to live with her, let her not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by his wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by her husband. And their children would be, if they leave, their children would be unclean. But if they stay, they will be holy, right? This is the part I want us to concentrate on, right? But if the unbeliever departs, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under any such bondage to stay, but God calls us to live in peace, right? So it's interesting how the Bible even refers to staying in a scenario where you're living with, let's say, somebody who is not just because obviously the unbelieving husband or wife, in our case, the unbelieving husband don't just want to go just so. It means your life in a mess because this man doesn't follow the ways of the Lord. Like all the things I talk about, maybe he might be an alcoholic, he's go whatever. Your life is a mess because of his lifestyle, right? The Bible says that you are under no obligation to stay in that bondage. God wants you to live in peace, right? And so this is talking about somebody who's married to an unbelieving man. So you might be a believer, your husband is not, right? But it also tells me that God is not only interested in your marriage working. Of course, he wants everybody's marriage to work, but he's also very interested in you living in peace and not living in a situation where it seems like you are under constant bondage, in a constant toxic environment, right? And when it says go to, it doesn't necessarily mean divorce, ladies. I'm not necessarily saying divorce. I'm saying that there are some situations where it is better that you all separate, go to live in separate homes, take some time apart and work things on, because the alternative to staying together is much, much worse than separate, right? So those were my 5 quick things just to marriages that I think you don't have to even bother to work on what I'm going forward to talk about now. Some marriages do need to end, right, ladies? So now we're going on to the list, right? Let me say before the list though, before you even begin to work on these things, right? Make a commitment. Both parties need to agree that what is happening moving forward, we are both working on our marriage or our relationship. It cannot be you alone. That makes no sense, right? It cannot be you alone wake up and say, okay, I'm going to commit myself to making my marriage work. If your partner is not on board, it's not going to work, right? So it has to be a commitment that both of you are willing to make. A commitment to rebuild trust, love, and what you intend to do should be very intentional, and even more intentional towards yourself than to your husband. So by that I mean, it's not a matter of going to him, women have you better commit, you had to commit to this, yes, son, you had to commit, don't let me down here. You need to study you, and you be very intentional in what your plan is, and you don't have to try to figure out what your husband's plan is or try to tell him, because ladies, we controlling all your like this. Nobody can argue. You will want to try to tell the man what to do, even to make, the marriage better. You're trying to work on you, right? So make sure you're both committed to moving forward and work on you, right? Be more concerned about you. But guys, let me tell you something. Well, knowing what your goals are helps you to create a plan to achieve them. Your heart needs to be invested in rebuilding what has been lost in the relationship. If your heart is not invested in rebuilding, if it's just, well, let me try a thing now, I'm telling you, the first big obstacle that presents itself in this whole rebuilding process, you're going to throw in the towel. You have to be committed, you have to be intentional, and it has to be a hard decision that you made, that I'm going to do this. I want to save my marriage, right? So before even getting into what to do, you have to be committed, right? Next thing, ladies, remove any obstacle. The obstacles that got you to the place where you are, move them, right? Things like, to give you practical examples, right? So you're moving forward, I'm going to give you a list, but there's sometimes there's some obstacles that are there that actually contributed to causing the problem in the first place. something like unforgiveness, right? Unfriendly interactions, the lack of trust. If you ladies, if you are working on building rebuilding your relationship, some kind of trust has to be established. You have to have a little trust. Now, yeah, if your husband betrayed your trust in some way, he has to work to rebuild that and to regain your trust, right? That's not just so. But you have to be willing, though, to be open enough to say, I am going to try, I want to trust my husband again, and open to, you know, the things that he might be doing, gestures that he might be making to rebuild that trust. You can't just say, well, you know, have an attitude. You're not going into this with a hard heart, right? And so remove obstacles. Let me give you a practical example of what obstacles would be before you even start to work on it, right? In-laws. In-laws, ladies, in-laws. If your in-laws, and this is something, obviously, I'm saying in-laws here, so your husband is the one. If it was your in-laws or his in-laws, all you had to get him out of the picture, right? If it was an ex-girlfriend who always on the scene, right? They're not together, but the ex-girlfriend are always calling for help or something, or they maintain a friendship and she somehow keeps getting in between the marriage, or you're insecure about his ex. If you are insecure about his ex, he has a right to, not in my opinion, the right thing to do is to stop any friendship. What you have in a friendship with your ex for when you married? What in the world? What reason your husband have to maintain a friendship with the ex, right? Especially if you as his wife is not comfortable. So if your husband, or let's say it's you, if you're not willing to get rid of that if that's an obstacle, it makes no sense moving forward. So if the agreement is, okay, we're gonna work on it, but you see, my friend Susie, let's say the husband saying this, that is not a friendship I'm willing to give up, even though it's causing a problem in the marriage and security. Forget it. It's not going to work, right? Another example, friends, just normal friends, right? If there's certain friends that always cause problems in the relationship, right? So move all obstacles, focus on eliminating any hurdle that will come between you and your marriage being rebuilt, right? So those two things you should do even before starting to work on these things, committing yourself. So one, you have to be committed, both parties, and remove all obstacles, right? Because it makes no sense trying to rebuild if your mother-in-law still coming over and still have the permission, let's say from your husband, or he's given her that authority to speak to you anyhow or to bad talk you. He's gonna have to put his foot down before you all could even move forward to work on that, right? Right, so the list now, number one thing that you can do, this is the number one thing, not the number one as in this is the number one thing, this is number one on my list, right? That you can do to work on your marriage, or to rebuild your marriage if there was some sort of decay, or your relationship, ladies, right? Go back to your first love, to the things that you used to do initially when you all got together. Return to, there's a verse in the Bible where God talks about, he's talking to the church, and he was talking about the churches and the issues that they had. And there was this particular church that basically had everything going for them, except they had lost their first love, that first passion that they had for God. And many times things start off hot and sweaty in your marriage. And then it's like you forget that there was once even that passion and love there. And so one of the things that you could start to do is working on going back to the things that you used to do in the beginning, and remembering, first of all, even focusing and saying, but wait now, we loved each other. We loved each other. We used to have such a great time together. Now, this is tricky. Here why this is tricky, and it may not work in all cases, right? Because as remember I said, after doing these things, you're married, it could still not work if your heart is hard. This would work if there was love and is love. If love was a foundation part of your relationship, your dating, if it was love in the initial stages. Many people, ladies, let me tell you, many people get married and after a few years realize that their relationship was not actually founded on love, but it was something else. It was that passion, it was that excitement, it was that, thrill that you get in the early of a relationship, when all the dopamine hormones active and you're feeling that everything is like, whoa, like dynamite, like you consume with this person kind of thing, right? That does not last. You can't live in that phase forever, right? And so if there was ever love there, if there was ever a time where this person, you didn't want to be out of their presence, all you could think about is when next I'm going to see them. And I mean, for love, you enjoyed their company. You were able to be transparent with the person. You know, you could see no wrong. You know that, when you're in that phase, sometimes you see no wrong in the person. As far as you're concerned, he's perfect, right? And only other people able to see his flaws, right? So if there was ever that real connection and passion between you all, you all need to work on getting that back. And let me say this, right? I need to get into this to rekindle those feelings and emotions, right? Do what you could to get back to that phase. But let me say this, right? Marriages, those of you who are newly married, or about to be married in a relationship, myself and the older married couples on this call can all attest to, and the rest of the world, if you research it, you'd see, marriage has phases. Like life, ladies, like life. You are born in an infant stage, and then you grow, you become a toddler, you become a child, you become a teenager, you become a young adult, then you become an adult, then you become a an older adult, and then a senior. What's an older adult? Anyway, right? Just like how the life of a human being has cycles and stages and seasons, the life of any relationship is not it's never going to be just one plain field and things are going to be the same all the time. Impossible. Please, if you are not married and you're going into a marriage, don't think that it's going to be hunky-dory all the time. There are phases. And the first phase in any relationship, marriage, is the honeymoon phase. In the honeymoon phase, it's bliss. The person can basically do no wrong. In the honeymoon phase, and listen, hear me, I said this earlier. If you never had a honeymoon phase in your relationship, I actually don't know what to say. Anyway, but right, it's a honeymoon phase, right? In the honeymoon phase of any relationship, marriage, even the person's little flaws and stuff, their little quirks and the things, all of it is attractive and funny. All of it is alluring to you. So the person trip and fall in like, oh, you're so clumsy, huh? But I love you for that. That's so cute. I love that about you. The person might have a bad habit of, let's say, digging the nose, I don't know, belching loud, I don't know, something that's, the little quirks and your little things, and people say in the early stage, oh gosh, I love all her quirks, I love all of those things. And John Legend have a song like that. I love all your quirks and imperfections, right? Cute, they love that. In the honeymoon phases, that's nice. Oh, she's so cute, all the little things she does. I mean, but there comes a phase, ladies, let me let you all know, where all them little quirks and things becomes annoyance. I'll tell you in what phase. I want to quickly run through the phases, right? Not run through, I'm not going into no detail. I'm just going to call them out, right? But I'll tell you where that starts to happen, where the same things you used to find so adorable. She's clumsy, but it's so cute, right? That does not last forever. Yeah? So you better make sure it's love that man love all you, right? Anyway, so the 7 stages of the marriage. First one is the honeymoon phase. Everything, they only have eyes for you, everything, basically everything perfect, even your imperfections, perfect, as John Legend said, right? The second stage, the coming down to earth phase, right? In the second stage of marriage, the bloom comes off of the rose. You still enjoy your partner, but in this phase, you realize, wait, now this person is human. And you realize the implications of them being human to your life, if this is a lifetime relationship, right? And so, you just start discovering things and you're realizing, okay, yes, this quirk was cute in the first couple of years of our dating. Honey comes out in the mood. Yes, Katrina, right? And so you're like, okay, this, you see this thing that used to be cute, it's kind of annoying me now. When I have to sleep in a bedroom, this is the reality of the marriage. My husband is suffering with gas. He have bad acid reflux, right? Bad acid reflux. Since I met him, he's had it, but it's gotten worse. And many a nights we sleeping, right? No, boys either love or not, right? My child have imperfections too. I love her like I don't know what. I could never stop loving her, no matter what. She had real imperfections, right? Anyway, many a nights I'm falling asleep and I hear bleh, bleh, and then from the other end too. I'm sorry, I'm selling on the man, but it's gas. What what gas? Why are you supposed to do for that? Right? I hear, I got sleep and I just hear this loud bell. Like, what is that? And then the snoring, right? In the early stages of marriage, you're like, oh my gosh, you snore. In the first couple of months of the marriage, oh my gosh, I didn't know you snore. Well, hopefully you didn't know he used to snore. Well, they never sleep together before, right? But when you sleep together for the first time, you realize this man's snoring, right? And the snoring is so bad that it's waking you up. In the early stages, in the honeymoon stages, it's a joke. He snores. You tell all your friends, oh my gosh, I married a snorer. Listen, when them snores waking you up out of your sleep with your heart racing because it's so loud, it's very difficult to laugh. It's very, very difficult to laugh. When you're in a deep sleep and you hear like a monster, you can't, it's to laugh, you don't want to laugh. At 2 a.m., you're not waking up laughing, right? I just been real with you all. But it's a reality, right? But in the early stages of the marriage, everybody, it's fun. He's a snorer, right? But I'm telling you, with time, the little things that you ignored, it can become annoyances. But you have to know that it's a phase, right? And that eventually is going to change too. So the coming to earth phase is number 2, and then you have stage 3. Here the stage 3. If only they change everything about themselves, things would be perfect. If only they would change. So now all of a sudden, they're nice, I love them, but if only they would change this. And this is the same things you want them to change that they had when you were dating, right? But now it's only baking soda. I will take note of that, Celeste, because any tips right now to help, I will take. So I'll go back to that chat. Thank you there for that advice. So you have that phase where you want them to change, right? You want, if only they change. And then you have smooth waters at some stage when things kind of iron out, and then you have finding each other again, a kind of reunion stage. This can actually happen. There's actually, I could tell you, I think, again, I've told you all many times, right? When my daughter was born, I know people have this phobia about having children and this fear of having children. That nasal strips, he wake up and don't even know what the nasal strips is, but I don't know if he suck it in his nostril or if it goes through his mouth, but it's happened a couple of times where it's been lost. So, right, but let's move on from that, right? When my daughter was born, when she came into our lives, it enhanced our marriage. She gave us a common goal and interest, something to focus on besides ourselves, right? Something to focus on besides us and our needs. And, I love to listen to Jordan Peters. I know he's not Peterson, sorry. I know he's not a believer or anything, but he has a lot of wisdom. He's not perfect. He's talked some crap too. But he was saying that he thinks that no individual, can fully mature until they actually have a child. Until they come to that point in their life where, or let's say they're taking care of somebody and they have to totally sacrifice. They have to give up their time, everything, because that your child needs all of you, and you literally have to give the infant all of you, right? They cannot make it on their own. They just can't. So their life actually depends on you, and nothing could mature you faster than that, right? And so in that phase, when you have your first child, it brings you closer. It's not meant to draw you apart. It's a beautiful time where you both love this child and you're working together as a couple now and as a family to make sure that this child could get the best possible life, And then there's a stage 6 where potential explosion, where things, as you get older, there are more challenges in life. There are health challenges. Maybe sex might change. How sex is done might change. Your health might change. Many things. Your financial situation might change. There's a stage where you're retired. People only think about when they're young, right? So remember, you get married, ladies, for a lifetime. And so you cannot expect every stage of your marriage and every phase of your marriage to be the same, right? So I just went through some of them. But everybody's supposed to have had a honeymoon stage. And so what I'm saying, number 1, ways that you could work on your marriage is to get back to that. The thing, remember, go back to your first love and remember what we used to do to have this excitement, this passion. Is it that we used to go on dates, right? And if that's the case, have one day a week where you all go out alone, go to the spots maybe that you used to go to when you were dating, you know, it might bring back memories. Everybody tries to be kind and loving and gentle when they're dating, and you don't use certain tones and stuff and attitudes, and you become this almost perfect person to impress your partner. And so if you had the ability to do it, then go back to it, try, right? A lot of people give up because of faith, not realizing that it's a phase. And so when, ladies, remember, I know this because I talk to people all the time. Do you have any idea how many people give up on their marriage after 2-3 years because they did not understand when the honeymoon phase was over? They didn't understand. They didn't go into the marriage, first of all, understanding this is for life. This is my partner, right? Now, remember, I ruled out the things that you shouldn't stay for. So please don't tell me. Say me not have to stay even though you beaten me. I already cleared that up, right? Talking about normal relationship, right? The honeymoon phase is over. So like, let's say 2-3 years, maybe 2-3 years, they get divorced because they hear what they say. It's not like it used to be when we first met. I no longer feel that love and that passion. It was lost. And some people actually foolishly give up in that phase because they think, well, this is how the rest of their life is going to be. And that's not the case. You all are working, you all are living together as a family. You all are, this is a life you have invested in. And that phase is, now ladies, please, please, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that you're not going to have romance throughout your marriage and it's not going to be passionate and the sex. I'm not saying that, but it is impractical for you to think that it will always be the way it was when you all first got together and when you very first got married. Everybody puts in, it's just a fact. If you're newly married, check me in 7 years, right? It's just a fact that people, when you now get married, you put in more effort. Everything that new and shiny and fresh, you treat better. Let me be real. Everything, when you buy a new car, talk to me ladies, when you buy a new car, I don't wash nothing. I don't wash no car. I don't want to see, don't tell me about washing no car. But when you get a new car, right? I might actually say to Kerwin, let me go and wash the car now, right? But that happened once. We're on another level. We probably wash the car for ourselves once. After that, you go in a place wherever you're pulling them, right? After 2-3 years on the car, you know, it lost its shine, it lost its like whatever. It's a car taking me around, yeah, it's a good car, but not saying your husband's supposed to become or you're supposed to become like that to your husband. But the reality is, it's actually human nature. We like new shiny things and experiences. But after a while, when life starts to happen, it's not that easy to keep that kind of shiny new mentality. What I would say too, and still in line with number one, which is to go back to your first love and do the things. What helps with those dopamine hormones and stuff? Try new experiences. So you might be married, let's say 5 years, and you feel like, okay, I lost this first love. Try new experiences. Don't ever settle for like a mundane kind of life. So if you realize things becoming monotonous, even in the bedroom, right? Even if, let's say, for the first how much years it was just a basic stuff, right? Don't ask me to what extent and how far, right? That's not what that topic is about. But I'm saying spice things up a bit. So try something new. Go travel if you all never travel alone because you're so busy with life. Try to take a vacation alone. Take up a hobby. Go and learn to dance together. Something, you know what I mean? But do something fresh and new that takes you out of the sort of mundane, boring lifestyle that, let's say, it might have become. And work together, you know, at it. If it's in the bedroom, yeah. Something that helped my husband and I. And ladies, it's very important to not only be focused on each other about that and self. If you have a common goal that you're working towards, a purpose, a plan for your lives together, let's say a business, something that you all are working on together, a project, it helps because what it does is take the focus off of, well, what I can get out of you and what you're not doing for me and what, because you're both focused on one, you know, on a purpose and you're working towards it. You don't have time for the little things. My husband and I are pastors, and I think we've been involved in ministries even before we were married. We both were in another church, and then my husband has his own ministry, and so we've always been together working. It's not been he's a pastor and well I home and doing my own thing. It's always been us working together. It's always we both have that as a goal, as a passion to help people and so that helps. It helps to have so that it's not just about okay, we build the house, we have the car now, we have one child, what now? That can never be my life because I always have something I'm working towards. I know that God called me and my husband, and we're working together to a common goal, right? So that's important and that helps. If there's nothing like that in your marriage, that could be why things get so me focused and, I'm bored. It's time to, yeah? So that was number one. Number two, right? Simple. Ladies, this is simple, simple, simple. Stop saying hurtful things to each other. Stop trying to tear down each other with your tongue. You ladies, stop trying to tear him down with your words and using your tongue as a weapon against the man, right? I saw a TikTok video that said, and it was so profound to me, that you could break down and destroy somebody or something in a few seconds that could actually take generations to fix or to never fix. You could break a man down in 2 minutes. You, the person who is his wife or the closest female to him, the person he loved the most, have the ability to break him down quite easily, right? By what you say to him. And when things get heated, when you have arguments and they get heated, that's when things come out. Hurtful words that you speak to your spouse or to your boyfriend. You ladies, you have to get a grip of your emotions and your tongue. Listen, things go from 0 to 100 most times because of what is said in an argument. If I am wrong, correct me. Please tell me I'm wrong. It's not that you are arguing because, again, for the naive among us, it's impossible to be married and not have conflicts and have arguments. They're supposed to be healthy. They're supposed to help you all to grow. You're supposed to overcome it and come to a resolution in a peaceful way. Yes, voices might raise a little bit. I don't mean like aggression, but that's natural. If you're expecting to not have that, I know, I mean, maybe you're special or something, but to me, that's like a normal part of a relationship, right? But what is said, right? Talk to me, ladies. It is what is said in those moments that cause things to decay fast. When you start to attack his manhood and say, you're not a man, you're not a man, you're a waste of time, right? You're just like your father and them, your family. One of them is no good. You just like them, right? You know why I marry you for? I know y'all are listening, and I know there are culprits here. No, they can't fool me at all, yeah. Well, they can. I know it have culprits here who would say whatever comes to their mind in an argument, right? So you have to be careful. Stop saying hurtful things. Stop saying hurtful things when you argue. If you continue to do hurtful things, it is only going to break down your husband and your marriage. If you can't stop that, you can't get a better marriage. I'm sorry, right? So if you're not willing to curb your tongue and your emotions, right? You have to be willing to humble yourself when there's a conflict. Ladies, it is not always about winning the argument and being right. You have to humble yourself sometimes and say, what is more important, that I win this little argument here, right? Or is it more important that I save, I understand what my husband is saying, I empathize with him, and we try to come to a compromise, or we try to work this out? Is it just about winning the argument? Is it about the one who come out feeling victorious, right? So yeah, sometimes you might feel like you win and you never even listen to what the man say. You get into the argument. This is your thinking. I have my piece to say and I'm going to say nothing stopping me here today. Nothing stopping me. I'm going to watch me. As we reach home, I'm going to tell him. That's an ignorant, foolish, really, really childish way of communicating, ladies. Please don't get angry with me. Let's leave that to toddlers who don't have a grip on their emotions and they're not emotionally intelligent. Let's leave that to them to throw tantrums, right? Let's not be the ladies who say, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind and tell him exactly how I feel. I don't want to use words to offend, but that's not an intelligent way to have an argument with your husband. Not if your plan is to keep your marriage and to actually come to a solution, whatever the problem is, right? Not if that's the case, right? The point is not to win the argument, it's to understand what your husband is saying. If you continually have that, your way of resolving conflict is to get brutal and hurtful and to be the loudest, to be the one that's hurt, to be the one that have the last word in the argument, here what is going to happen. Your husband is going to retreat. He's going to go in a corner. He's not going to discuss anything with you. When it's time to argue, he will say, I'm not, he will, because here what? He know he just gonna get beat up. Not, I don't mean physically. He know he gonna come out, it's gonna be an emotional battle. And ladies, you all seem to like emotional battles, but men don't. Men, I might have one or two exceptions. I know somebody gonna come out and say, no, my boyfriend, he more, right? I'm sure there are exceptions, but women are the ones who like the emotional battles and throw the tantrums and want to get their point across. Eventually, he's going to be backed in a corner and not want to argue with you. And that's a dangerous place to get a man to. It is better that he argues with you and makes an effort to understand you than when you see you reach to a point where he's not arguing anymore and he's refusing to have a conversation where the conflict is concerned. It's a dangerous. So he's closing up. That's not a good thing. Don't say, well, you see, he afraid me. He afraid me. He don't come around me again because he know when my mouth so he don't bother. He know what time it is, right? You're in danger, right? You're in danger of losing your husband. He's checked out. Losing your husband and losing your marriage. And perhaps even losing him to somebody else. I'm not saying that it's justified, but it's life, ladies. It's what happens, right? Right, but it's up to them though, right? So yeah, men don't like the licks. Men don't like the licks, right? Next one. And this sort of ties in with this. So that was number 2. Stop saying hurtful things. Stop using your tongue as a weapon. Stop it, ladies. And it's going to take humility. Humble yourself, right? And the men cannot take the disrespect. So humble yourself. Number 3. Right here, number 3. Adjust your demands if you can. I'm using the word if you can because I spoke about in the earlies and before we started, the things that you shouldn't be fighting to hold on to your marriage for. So if your demand is, be faithful to me now, stop having other women, that's not to be adjusted. There's no compromise there, right? You don't have to adjust that demand. If you can't do it, bye-bye, right? Adjust your demands means this. If the arguments start, because arguments sometimes start from the most foolish, stupid little things, but it escalates and breaks down each other because of the things that are said. Remember, I said that, right? In the argument, and it causes a whole other. And then when you get so passionate in an argument, you tend to bring up the person's mistakes from the past. So it's something that gone up, but because things get so heated and he says something to hurt you, you want to bring up something to hurt him. And you had to go to the archives and you pull out some old thing that he did that he hurt you or whatever, some mistake he made years ago, right? Adjust your demands means this. If the argument always starts, ladies, because he does not pick up his plate after he eats. Every time he has his dinner, he would leave his plate by the side table or on the dining room table. Or every time he brushes his teeth, he leave toothpaste, when you brush teeth and somebody toothpaste fall on the side of the sink, you don't wipe it off. And you come and you see it and that gross you out and that send you mad. So you come outside and say, oh gosh, man, you can't just take something and wipe this so-and-so toothpaste off the sink when you brush your so-and-so teeth, right? So it's a really small thing that annoyed you. But when you go in your anger and your haste to tell him about it, or even if you don't tell him like that, but that causes arguments, little things like that, right? Let me tell you something. If you reach the stage where you're trying to improve and save your marriage, you might have to lessen your demands. You'll have to let the toothpaste on the side of the sink slide. Make sure you have a cloth nearby that you wipe it yourself. It's either that, ladies, or you have a miserable marriage. If having no toothpaste on the side of the sink is more important to you than your husband and your marriage, well, go ahead. Go ahead. Quarrel every time. You go ahead. You do it. Quarrel every time. You get your right, sister. Get that toothpaste removed, right? At the expense of your marriage, your relationship, and perhaps your children if you have children. So I'm saying, let the little things slide, lower your demands, work on the mountain, because remember, I'm speaking from a place of a couple that has come to the stage where they realize we have to save our marriage here and we want to work on it and we're doing these things, right? So I'm not saying if your husband do something out of time, you really leaving the plate, you can't tell him that. I'm not saying that, right? Obviously, when you first get married and you realize, well, okay, this man mother ain't bringing up properly. This man, okay, she did a horrible job. I wasn't looking for him there. Nothing is wrong with telling him, right? Of course, it's an obvious. Yeah, it's obvious. Nothing is wrong with telling him, ladies, honey, you could pick up your plates when you finish, and especially, you gotta be careful how you're telling him too, right? He marry mother, right? You could pick up your plate when you finish, thing, whatever. But I'm not saying let him do whatever he wants. I'm talking about in this stage, we're talking about things to improve your marriage that has been broken down because of arguments that perhaps started off a little crap, right? In this stage of rebuilding, you're going to have to lower your demands, because the more important thing is the fact that my marriage could end, not toothpaste on the side of the sink or the plate on the dining room table. So let's say in that phase he does it. And ladies, let me tell you something, and you all will want to disagree with me, but me taking on all your own, right? If you all have come to this agreement that we're rebuilding, we're working on our marriage, right? We're working on it, we're moving forward. And your husband realized you stop sweating the little things, and he actually seen you picking up the plate. Now, this is if he really love you. That's some men don't care, not talking about that, right? It is not love. We established these things already. We're talking about two people who love each other and want to make the marriage work. He see you picking up the plate. He realized that, wait now, she not arguing me about these things again, right? He come after, he brush his teeth, and he realized he's sink clean. And all these little things, she realized you doing it, and you're not complaining, and you're not throwing it in his face either. Because what we like to do, ladies, right? Let's be real. We doing the things, but we must let him know, right? Because you're building up credit now. So credit service. So you're building up your credit. So I moved your plate today, huh? Yeah, I moved your plate. You can't move that plate without him knowing you moved that plate. You have to know, right? But when it becomes you just genuinely putting those little things aside and saying, I'm going to do it myself, because more importantly, I want my marriage to work. So I'm not going to argue about that right now. We're rebuilding. Right? He will notice and start to make an effort. If you do it a whole 2 weeks and you realize, if there's an ounce of love in him, I'm telling you all ladies, eventually he's going to pick up his plate, right? So sometimes you'll say you're doing the right thing, but you do the right thing the wrong way. You pick up the plate and you pick it up so. Slam it and you put it in the sink. Wow! So he must hear that, even if he's not there, right? He didn't see you pick up the plate, but you hear you pick up the plate, you go, no, though, because I go and slam it down in that sink so you can not pick up his plate, right? Wrong attitude, ladies. Wrong attitude if what you are trying to do is rebuild your marriage, right? If you're trying to be right, go ahead, slam the plate in the sink. You go ahead, do your thing, right? So that was number 3. Number 4. Here, number 4. Simple, ladies. Simple. Don't get mad with me. This is life. Work on your physical appearance to attract him, to get him, to lure him into, because intimacy is one of the ways that you could put everything aside. Not sex, intimacy, right? Actually making love to the person is one of the ways that somehow things is just you can let slide, when you're in that, when it's truly an intimate moment. And sometimes sometimes as life goes on, both parties start to take put less focus on how their physical appearance, right? I'm talking from basic things to whatever, right? A simple thing like, let's say before you go to bed, let's say your husband is a man, he's a man, he like you to smell good, and when in bed, when you want to smell a little perfume rather than sweat, right? So, but in the early you used to do it because you're gearing up and those things could happen, right? So you're making sure you're bathed and you're perfumed up. But then as the years go on, you get tired because it wasn't really you and you're just doing it, and you get comfortable and you start to go to bed and you don't take a shower. And so you're not smelling too good anymore. Or you go to bed, get vexed with me. But let's say your husband don't get vexed with me, ladies. Let's say your husband don't necessarily like anything on your head, because men love hair, right? Again, ladies don't get vexed with me, right? I mean, yeah. Men love hair, and he might want to, the hair might be an attractive thing to him to see you sleeping on your hair. Well, your hair is, he'd rather see that than something tie wrong. Trust me, right? And so just with time, things break down in terms of the physical. You could work on that to get him to a place of, to stimulate him, right? So let's say in the earlies, you used to use lingerie, right? Remember, we were building. So in the earlies, you used to use lingerie. And when you put on the lingerie, what I used to do to him. Men are different to women, ladies. Let me tell you something. It don't matter how vexed he is with you, but you might have to humble yourself, because it might be taking great effort for you to do this because you're feeling hurt, right? Put on the lingerie and just walk in front of it, right? Give him a little shimmy, something, whatever, right? And give him a little wink eye. He know what time it is, right? And he'll be like, where you pull that out? Nice, Karen, right? No, I'm not talking about looking outside, a whole other topic. I'm not talking about looking out. I just saying that the man, because your marriage is decaying and you realize you're rebuilding, this is just things to stimulate the excitement and stuff again. He gonna know what time it is. And he was like, whoa, well, how long I see you wear them kind of lingerie, girl, whatever, right? And so even basic things. So your parents, they could, guys, marriages are not only there's a big physical part to marriage and an attraction. Men, most times when you meet a woman, it's because you're attracted to them, you fell in love with them, or what you saw first was the outward, you like that, you get to know them, you fall in love, whatever. Men are visual, we know that, right? And so to just totally ignore the physical would be unfair to a man, right? And so you want to keep yourself, the Bible actually says your body is his and his is yours, right? And let's say you feel, ladies, let's say you feel like this, and this is a tough thing to accept, right? Let's say you're starting to feel like your husband is no longer attracted to you because your body has changed drastically. Nothing is wrong with trying to work on that. That's all I'm saying. And women get really emotional about this. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you, but there's a practicality to romance and a man visually being attracted. And if he's no longer attracted because your body has totally changed, it doesn't mean he doesn't love you. So I'm saying nothing is wrong with working on the physical. Not to no big, great extent. Sometimes it could be, as I said, small things like taking a bath and fixing your hair, making sure you're just looking presentable when he come home. So let's say you're looking like a dirty whatever whole day. You're wearing rags, you're barely wearing clothes, or you had on your nightie all day, right? Which sometimes, I don't do that again. I don't. I used to do that. I used to be my nightie all day, right? So let's say you're looking like a ragamuffin all day, you're smelling stink because you're cleaning. Let's say you home, right? You're the housewife, whatever. And he come home and meet you so, right? It's better for him to come home and meet you bathed. Nobody's saying you had to greet him by the door in lingerie, but just smelling good and your hair combed and some clean clothes. That is so Dana hard. It don't mean he don't love you, ladies. I think it's just, I think that's natural, right? That's a natural thing to do. And so, remember again, I'm talking about trying to rebuild, and sex is a powerful thing in a marriage, intimacy, and you can make a change in that area. That could help to change things, to rekindle things. And as I said earlier too, we get a little adventurous as well in that area, right? Yeah, I would love to read all your comments, but they go by so fast, right? That was what, number 4? Number 5. Here, number 5. Emphasize on changing you in this rebuilding and not changing your partner. I think I kind of mentioned this earlier, right? Insisting that your mate or your partner, whoever, lives according to your specification does not work. You cannot put demands on him. It's not like this. This rebuilding, ladies, is not like this. Well, we ain't going nowhere if you don't start to change this. You gotta change this. You gotta change this. I don't know if that's a raise hand or a clap hand, but questions gonna come after, right, ladies? So remember your questions and we'll address them at the end, right? Focus on you, right? Focus on you. You cannot change your husband. If we ladies could change our husbands, marriages would end. There would be less marriages ending because you'll make him into what you want him to be. All you realize that all you can't change him. All you come to that realization yet, and it makes no sense trying to control him. That does not make things better. And so in this process of rebuilding, focus on how I could be a better person, not how I could make him be better. Big mistake, right? You know, it's not a matter of you trying to mold him and make him into the perfect husband. Work on you, right? Because trust me, if you're not willing to look within and realize that I played a part in the decay of this marriage, I had something to do, right? And I'm gonna take responsibility and start working on you. You're not going to get anywhere, right? That's number 5. Number 6, I said I did go over 5. Get professional help in that phase. So if you could, let's say, invest in some marriage counseling in that period, not throughout your marriage. I mean, you may not need to have a third party if you resolve things, you know, proper way. But let's say you realize things have been broken down and you're working towards building it up. It's a good idea to say, okay, honey, once a month for this year, or twice a month, we're going to go to this marriage counselor, right? We're going to see this marriage counselor. Sometimes a third party is necessary, but somebody professional, somebody who, let's say, you trust, a pastor, a leader, not just anybody. You don't go out there and just tell anybody. So that helps too, having a third party, having somebody who has experience and who has counseled many people and who could tell you what will work and what will not work and guide you as a couple, right? That's going to help you definitely. And the last one, which is kind of, to me, really basic, and you know, again, it takes humility to do these things, right? And a willingness to really want to work it out. If you know what your partner's love language is, flood them with that kind of love, not the kind of love you want to give them. If your partner's love languages is gifts, right? In that phase, you want to rebuilding, you want to be extra thoughtful and surprise them with a gift. What it will do to your partner is like, whoa, she's thinking about me. She knows I like this. He would see that as making an effort. If his love language is words of affirmation, then make sure to make an extra effort to know that, for him to know that I'm going to be giving him words of affirmation. I'm going to be saying nice things to him. I'm going to praise him when he does something well, or if it's acts of service, make sure, like we spoke about, moving the plate and that kind of thing, right? So again, I know it have ladies out there who saying, so why I must do that or what he must do. You start wrong already. Let me tell you something. If you are thinking that right now, you're in a bad place. Because as I said, what number 5 was, put the emphasis on you, on what you're going to do to change, not them. And this is for you. Your husband not here. I'm talking to you. And I'm telling you, if you do these things, if your husband really does love you and wants to rebuild your marriage, I cannot see it failing. At least one or two of them making an impact or helping things to be better. And you have to be patient, ladies. It is not so, oh gosh, don't do me this now. Don't try for a month and say, you see? I know he didn't really love me. Or I know he no good. Oh gosh, you have to have patience, right? You're rebuilding. It's hurt. Remember, this is probably years of hurt. When you are hurt, I'm sure everybody on this call has been hurt by someone before. Maybe not a spouse or, from a romantic relationship. But you know what it feels like to carry around that hurt and a feeling of rejection. And so if you still have that hurt there, remember we spoke about unforgiveness earlier, right? You have to forgive to even start this process. You have to forgive and let go. But, you still have memories and you still have the feeling of hurt, things that you might have said or done. But if you allow that hurt to dominate the way you treat him, you're not going to get anywhere, right? And so you have to humble, ladies, you have to be humble. And I'm saying, if you know how the man loves to be, how he likes to be loved, love him that way, or make an extra effort to do the things that you know gonna make him feel special, it's gonna be hard for him to reject it, right? Remember, this is somebody who's on the same page with you, because I know I can hear all the reasonings and stuff that you're gonna say after, but I'm talking about somebody who's on the same page with you. It's gonna be very difficult for him to just ignore these things, right? All of these things that I listed. So I'm gonna say them over really quick, and then I want you all to come with your questions, right? To unmute your mics, ask questions, make your comments. If you want to share an experience you had, whatever, this is your opportunity, right? Right, before you even start, you have to be committed. Both parties have to be committed for the long haul. You have to be intentional, right? Must be committed. You have to have goals. Nothing is wrong to it putting a time frame, but I think that might be, I don't know. You can't put a time to these things. Like you say, okay, we're gonna work on this for a year. I mean, nothing is wrong with it. But I think eventually you're gonna start to see when things change, right? So you're committed and you're removing obstacles, right? And then we're going on to the list, right? Number 1, go back to your first love. No need to explain that again. Do some of the things you used to do in your first love. Stop saying hurtful things. Stop tearing down and rebuild. In this phase, you want to rebuild. Stop tearing down. You tear down enough, right? Number 3, adjust your demands, right? We know what that is. Number 4, work on your physical appearance as much as you can. I mean, if you can't and you think, well, I'm fine, right? Number 5, emphasize on changing yourself, not your partner in this phase. It's not about what list you're going to give him to change. Work on you. Number 6, get professional help on a regular basis in this phase. Not when things flare up. I'm not talking about when you all have an argument that you call the therapist or whatever, or you call me. I'm talking about scheduled appointments. So you get a third party to say, okay, you're doing good. You all could do this better, whatever, right? And help you all through the process. Number 7, shower them with their love language. The thing, whatever it is, let them see that you're making an effort. They will notice, right? Yeah. So ladies, that brings me to the end. I want to get questions from you. I saw some interesting comments. Maybe Sally, you could start by reading some of the comments that the ladies made.